Greetings agents, this is Private Boulders, the mediocre gamer, and this is the Division 2. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my content. If you find it at all helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. I hope you're doing well today. Today we are looking at another build targeted at newer players that contains no exotics. This build is commonly referred to as a tech tank, and I got this build from a really great community member and content creator by the name of iKia. And no, I'm not referring to the Swedish furniture manufacturer. I'll leave some links in the description to iKia's YouTube channel and his builds that he has on Google Drive. I do recommend you check him out, as I said, he's a really great content creator, goes into a lot of depth and detail, and also the mathematics behind a lot of these builds, so check him out. Just a disclaimer that I am by no means saying that the build I'm about to show you is meta or the best or the most powerful. It's just a build that has a great amount of survivability and also damage. So it's kind of at that crossroads where you're putting out quite a bit of damage, but you've also got quite a bit of survivability as well. So it's not a striker build, as I said. It doesn't have any exotics, and I do believe that it is a really great build for new players to start with, or at least have in their arsenal. It's pretty easy to farm as well. So if we have a look, start with the specialization, which is the technician. So there's a couple of reasons here. One is the artificer hive, which basically boosts our skills, and I'll get to that later. The other one is the linked laser pointer, which is an attachment for the assault rifle I'm going to recommend. So it basically pulses your targets, which works in really great with the Heartbreaker set. Alright, so if we have a look now at the gear set, so in the build footage I am running 4 pieces of Heartbreaker. I'm running the chest, gloves, holster and knee pads. So the 4 pieces of Heartbreaker give us 15% assault rifle damage and 15% LMG damage. It also gives us 15% weapon handling, and the Heartstopper talent applies a pulse for 5 seconds when you get a headshot, which isn't particularly needed for the way that this build is set up. Weapon hits on pulsed enemies add a stack of 1% bonus armor and 1.1% weapon damage to pulsed enemies, up to a maximum of 50 stacks. So you can see there that if you max this build out, you're going to be up to 50% bonus armor and 50% weapon damage. Okay, you do lose 2 stacks for each second. The chest talent, which I'm running, increases max stacks from 50 to 100. There is a little bit of customization that you can do with this build. You don't have to run the chest piece if you don't want to. You can run something else, because you may find getting to 100 stacks isn't all that achievable, maybe. Depends on how you play, depends on your playstyle, and it's also situational. But for the purposes of this video and in the footage, I'm running the chest piece. The backpack I'm running is the Bellstone Armor named piece called Liquid Engineer. So one piece of Bellstone gives us 1% armor regen, which adds to our survivability. This also comes with Perfect Bloodsucker, so killing an enemy adds and refreshes a stack of 12% bonus armor for 10 seconds. Max stacks is 10. So once again, that helps for your survivability. The mask I'm running is a Seska mask for the extra critical hit chance. And your minor attributes, what I suggest you do is try and get your critical hit chance as close to 60 as possible. Anywhere above 55% is great. And then once your critical hit chance is around 55-60%, then you want to go for critical hit damage so that you're taking advantage of that extra damage you get from critical hit, scoring critical hits. The weapon that I'm using in the footage is the named piece called a Kingbreaker, which comes with perfect flatline. So perfect flatline amplifies weapon damage to pulsed enemies by 20%. After 3 kills, it applies a pulse to the next enemy you hit. So if you, as I mentioned before, we're running the technician spec, which comes with the laser linked pointer. If you equip the laser linked pointer to this weapon, whenever you point your weapon at an enemy, it automatically pulses them, so there's no need to apply a headshot. You just aim at them, it'll pulse them, and then you get that 20% extra weapon damage, which is very handy. If you don't have the Kingbreaker, you can farm it now. The latest season, they basically changed the loot pool so that if you run the Camp White Oak mission, you do actually have a higher chance of obtaining this weapon from running it. So my advice would be to, if you want to farm the Kingbreaker, run Camp White Oak on the highest difficulty that you are comfortable with as many directives as you're comfortable with, and it should drop eventually. I'm not saying that it will drop on your first run, but it does have a higher chance of dropping. So just bear that in mind. Or the alternative is you can run this with any weapon that you like. I would suggest running it with either an assault rifle or an LMG, and then just recalibrating the talent to the standard flatline if you have it in your library. The only difference there is that it's 15% extra damage to pulsed enemies, and after the 4th kill, it will apply pulse to the next enemy. And then the third attribute that I suggest you run is 10% damage to targets out of cover, or whatever you have in your library as a percentage. So if you don't have the max 10%, then whatever your library currently is, I suggest recalibrating to that damage to targets out of cover, because pretty much everything you are shooting at is going to be out of cover, so that is going to increase your damage done to them. The other option you could run is the named LMG called Dare, that also comes with perfect flatline. Alright, so the skills that I recommend that you run is the Artificer Hive. So that sends out micro electro booster drones that expend themselves to increase allied skills efficiency and refresh their duration. Periodically releases a drone whilst holstered. This drone affects only your skills. So in a group situation, you can deploy this hive to your teammates, or you can deploy it on the ground and it'll have a radius. If your teammates are within the radius, then they'll be able to get these bonuses. Or if you're just running solo, you just keep it holstered and it will help to buff your shield. So because we're running the technician spec, we have 1 skill tier. So we'll get 4 charges 100% charge efficiency, 2-second skill refresh, 10% range, 10% drone speed, and 70% health. So that is quite handy. The second skill I suggest you run is the Crusader Shield. So that allows primary weapons to be used whilst equipped, but it does expose your legs. And the shield skill tier increases with both armor cores and skill cores. The one thing to be aware of here is that you will be disorientated briefly if the shield breaks from taking hostile damage. So in the build I'm showing here, I'm running 4 armor cores, which is probably a little bit too much. I'd suggest that you run 4 armor cores and, sorry, I'll start again. I suggest you run 3 armor cores and 3 weapon cores. I'm running 4 armor cores and a skill tier, so this is at skill tier 5. So it's plus 50% active regen, plus 200% shield health, and plus 25% shield regen. This build, I know how I have said, is no exotics, but if you do have the Memento backpack, I would suggest that you run with this instead of the Liquid Engineer backpack that I showed, as the Memento, particularly if you're running this build solo, the Memento backpack really will boost your damage and survivability. So yeah, but if you don't have the Memento, then that's something to farm for. But if you do, if you don't, then yeah, maybe go with the Liquid Engineer or something else that you might feel helps with this build. But there you have it. That's the build. What are your thoughts? What do you think about the build? You know, is it something that you would consider running? Let me know in the comments. But I hope you find this build helpful. If you do, good luck with it. And once again, thanks for watching. And if you could, please consider liking and or subscribing. That's all for now, agents. Until next time, stay safe out there and take care.